What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Dakota. It's July 22nd, 2025. First of all, I'd like to wish, not that she watches my videos, but happy birthday to my wife. Second, I'm back from vacation. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in front of the charts. Took 10 days off, basically. And if you ever get a chance to go to Alaska, take the chance. It's amazing. With that said, today was my second day back to trading. And it was a good morning. Shortly after 10 o'clock, the chart turned to crap. So there's not much to talk about today, but we're going to go over what we found and why we took what we took and all the things. So let's take a look. And, oh, by the way, buy my book. Sales are slipping a little bit, guys. It's a decent value at 10 bucks. Actually, it's a great value at 10 bucks if you're willing to take the ebook. There's a lot of good information in that book. And when you get a chance to watch the video that I am currently making about how I trade SPY, SPX, futures video, because it's all the same, and you couple it with that book, I think you might have a very, very nice winning strategy on your hands at that point. So look out for that video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the charts. This morning leading into the open, we had a very tight, non-directional range that we were dealing with. So we put a call line at 564.29 and we put a put line at 563.68. Now, leading into the open, I told everybody 5 minutes before the open, I said, guys, I don't know which way this is going to go. There's nothing in pre-market that's giving me any indication that I should be prepared for calls or puts. For that reason, I'm not going to aggressively play the call put scenario. With that said, I followed it up saying, however, if we open up here and we make our way down to the put line, since it's so much farther away, I would have to assume that there's a little bit of momentum behind that, and I would be willing to play the put scenario at that point. Not looking for a massive move. I mean, we all hope they turn into massive moves, but that was the reason for the put line. Now, we didn't just open and crash straight down there. This took its sweet time. I announced to everybody, as clear as I possibly could, that I'm getting prepared for puts. Once we crossed this line, which was basically right after the close of this candle, I jumped into those puts, as did a bunch of other people. Now, obviously, we were hoping for we got a much bigger move on Qs than we did on SPY. Now, the question here is, why did I take puts even though ADD was printing green? The reason I took these puts was because it was very evident very early that Qs were controlling SPY, right? So if I got Qs moving down and ADD moving up, but SPY is moving down as aggressively as Qs are, I'm going to trust that the Qs are winning the battle between who's controlling SPY, ADD or Qs, okay? Is it a bit more risky? Absolutely, it is. But that's part of the territory, right? I'm okay with taking a little bit of extra risk. In this case, it worked out for me, but not huge. It wasn't a huge win. In fact, I should probably check that. Let me check my old TradeZilla over here to find out what percentage return, because it wasn't a huge one on this particular trade. In fact, I barely met my daily goal with that trade, which is why I took a second trade today. So, first trade today was a 14.9% win. Now, normally that would be a much larger win dollar-wise, but because contracts, if you've been watching yesterday and today, are extremely cheap compared to what we're used to. So even though we got a 14% or 15% win on that one, it didn't produce the amount of dollars that we would normally expect, especially for an SPX trader. But it was a win nonetheless. So we got down to the pink line. I had an alert set there. And when we got there on SPY, again, much smaller move than the Qs chart provided, I took myself out of the trade, mainly because ADD was printing green and not showing any signs of weakness at that time. So I'll take that. But I yearned for more just because I want more in this case. We started to move up. During this move up, I was being asked by one of our members, Joseph, thank you for asking the question, Jimmy, when should we consider calls? I said, I don't think I would touch calls at least until SPY gets a close above 629.18. Why? Because, well, if you look here on this chart, this was a pretty nasty resistance in pre-market. I don't think that's something you want to buy leading into at that moment. Also, while this was happening, I brought to everybody's attention, and this is something you guys need to pay attention to because it's typically a pretty good indicator. Take a look at ADD, okay? When you have a very aggressive move in one direction or the other, and then those candles slowly start getting smaller and smaller, this is just telling you that momentum is dying at that time, okay? So again, if you're looking for calls and you see ADD doing this number over here, that's not a good thing. In fact, I told everybody, guys, this is looking like ADD or small caps or whatever you want to call it is getting weaker, not stronger. Couple that with the fact that we're at resistance, a strong one on SPY. I said, this is not only when we should not be taking calls, but it should be starting to make the switch over to what we want to find or look for to take puts. Okay. So with that said, sorry about that alert. Finally got to a target we were looking for. With that said, as Qs were moving up, we put in a lower high here on the Qs. Okay. We pulled back, we broke support, got down to another one of our several supports down here. But SPY also put in a lower high shortly thereafter. And it wasn't until Qs got below this support, we took a look at ADD, it was printing red. This is an A+ setup. So we're coming off lower highs on Qs. We're producing what looks like it's going to be a lower high on SPY. And we're hoping to get down to the pink line on the SPY chart or the pink line on the Qs chart, whichever one you're aiming for, nonetheless. Now, that trade worked, but it got very uncomfortable shortly after we got into this trade. Why? Because we pulled back. Now, the stop loss on a trade like this has to be a close back above the lower high that got you into the trade. That is your resistance. That's what's going to save you. And in this case, it did, thankfully, because that would have been sucky if it didn't. ADD then started to drop. SPY and Qs started to drop. I took myself out when SPY got to the pink line. Unfortunately, it dropped a hell of a lot more than that. Those contracts, which I want to say I paid $980 a piece for, ended up getting all the way up to being worth $3,000 a piece. Insane, but I don't care. On that trade, I made 31.35%, and that was it for me for the day. Again, couple the fact that the contracts were cheaper, and that's not necessarily a good thing. That just means volatility is low. But when you start to get a quick move down like this, volatility starts to increase quickly, and your contracts will gain value much more quickly. But when they're cheap, it makes it feel more comfortable to buy, even if the trade's a bit more risky, which is what ultimately made me okay with taking my opening puts, because they were really cheap this morning compared to what SPX is. Same thing with yesterday. That's because we have no catalyst. By the way, guys, the expected range on the day yesterday and today is very, very small, less than $2. And that's the market maker expected move. If you use TOS, you know what I'm referring to. Now, that number is never usually accurate, meaning we don't stay within that range very often, but it will tell you what IV is likely to be, whether it's going to be high or low, which tells you whether the contracts are going to be expensive or not, which also tells you whether the contracts are going to move a decent amount or not. Excuse me, I'm a little bit sick. With that said, that was my second and final trade of the day. As we moved into 10 o'clock, we don't like to get into trades at 10 o'clock or near it. So after 10 o'clock, we did put in a lower high on Qs. ADD was printing red. And we would be expecting this to break support, and we were hoping it was going to make it down to 558. That trade failed. It didn't work out. Not every trade works. Again, I wasn't in this, but there were a couple of people who took it because it is a setup that works typically most of the time. Today is not that day. I didn't mark it on the SPY chart, but you would have been getting in here hoping for a break of this support area down to the next one. Didn't work out, but you would have stopped out because we closed back above the lower high. That was the reason you got in. So it should have been a small loss, but a loss nonetheless. On the way up, I said to everybody, guys, if the Qs can get through resistance here, the next one up is way up, and it's all the way up at 561.50. That would be a decent trade as long as ADD is printing green. Looks good. we did get a close above that resistance here at 10:07, and it took its sweet time to get up to where we wanted it to go. It took a very long time to get where we wanted it to go. I would not probably have held long enough to see that resistance get hit, but I did have some people who did, and I'm happy for them because this would have been a very uncomfortable trade to hold through on the pullback. But supports held, not the first one, which is where my stop would have been. So if we're getting in here at 10:07 because we broke resistance and we create a higher low on the way up and we pull back, I need that higher low to become my new support. That's going to become my particular stop loss. Unfortunately, I would have stopped out of that trade for a break even or maybe a small loss just because we got in here and we got out near the same point, a little above. With that said, the absolute latest stop loss, which I did tell everybody, is this little level right here. And the reason that was important is because we were also considering the fact that if we got through that level, we'd be considering puts, hoping to come down to the support that we had created all the way down at the bottom. So if that support holds, you're in luck if you're in calls, and we hope that we bounce up and continue to head to where we wanted to go, which ultimately it got there. So for those of you who took this trade and you held on through this, you have more guts than I do. You made it to your target. It just took a long, long time to get there. After that, guys, we started to move sideways for the rest of the time that I was on the microphone, which was basically 12 o'clock. And the only trade setup we were considering at this point, calls are tough to justify because very strong resistances up here throughout this entire time on SPY. Plus, it's very congested. A lot of lines close to each other. Not a good time to be taking calls, in my opinion. Plus, Qs weren't moving much. What we were really hoping for was that the Qs were going to get weak enough to fall through this red block. But, Borges, if you're out there, we were talking about puts only if we can get through this support right here at 560.61, hoping for the move to get down to 559.84. Guys, that happened, unfortunately, after I got off the mic right here. So 560.61, we got through it here, and we headed down, finally just touching that level that we were just talking about. You heard the beep while I was on this video. Down here. So it was a decent move, 560.61 down to 559.81. So about an, what is that, an 80-cent move? Not bad, but took forever. At this point, there's no catalyst. There's no reports. Maybe a headline pops up that will make the market move up and down. But right now, theta is getting nasty. The moves are taking forever to happen. It's a difficult chart to play at this point. We have a very good win-loss ratio today. Last I checked, it was 11-1. So most of us made our money in the morning during that drop down or that move up. And most people are calling it a day, which is good in this particular case. With that said, I got nothing else for you for today. I'm not going to make these types of videos every day. I'll make them sporadically throughout the day because I know some of you, all 232 people that watch them, enjoy them. But for me, it's lost its value in that I'm trying to teach you guys things, and these videos sound redundant because it's the same things that we talk about over and over and over again. So I am trying to shift my focus into making more educational value videos. So it's not going to be specifically about a trading day. Now we're going to move back into what ended up becoming my most watched video, which was my original How I Trade SPY Options. We're going to do a more modern version with my more up-to-date strategy and my rules and what I've learned over the course of the last 4 years of doing this, a little more than 4 years, to make it more modern, more up-to-date, and more true to what the market is today versus what it was back then. I've developed a lot more discipline. I've developed a lot more to learn more things in the market that make me or help me make better trading decisions, things I've learned along the way. All these things is what we're going to cover in that next video. It's going to be a longer one, so I know most of you won't watch it, but it's probably in your best interest to watch the whole thing. With that said, I hope you did find some value in this particular video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you like, join my Discord community. Well, I'd love to have you. There are links down below. We've got futures traders in there. We've got stock traders in there. We've got options traders in there. Guys, the strategy works for everything that's not a penny stock, okay? It basically revolves around support, resistance, price action. That's it. If you understand price action and you know how to chart, which is things we cover daily in our community, you can become a better trader. You just got to know what to do when certain things happen and take the leap. But if that's something you're interested in, join my Discord. If you'd rather read about it, buy my book. It's a good one. And with that said, I hope you all had a great day today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Till tomorrow, I love you guys. See you.